Hey, it's Roy Newgate here, and today I want to continue from my last video and give you guys the part 2 of the discussion. Last time I went a little in depth on the world titles of the One Piece world and what they're supposed to represent. For this portion, I want to discuss top tiers in general, but I want to mostly focus on the Yonko versus Admiral debate. I feel like there's elements to this discussion that some people don't take into consideration, so I'll tell you guys how I feel about it and why I think one particular faction doesn't get enough credit. Most people in the fan base are of the opinion that the Yonko as a whole are significantly superior to the Admirals. Now, the reason for this, as most may know, is how the One Piece anime portrayed Whitebeard with Marineford. In some instances, it made the gap appear much larger than it actually was, and that left many fans with the perception that the Yonko are an entire tier above the Admirals. For example, you see Whitebeard fending off Akainu with a single arm in the anime and tossing him aside as if he were some sort of helpless child. This, of course, did not take place in the manga at all. All that aside, though, I think an even bigger issue is that people tend to automatically assign Whitebeard's portrayal to the rest of the emperors simply because he belonged to their faction, the strongest pirates of the One Piece world. This is a bad way to look at it because Whitebeard's portrayal wasn't of him being equal to the rest of the emperors. He was feared as the most powerful man on the planet. And despite how you may view his performance, the perception of this man was that he was ahead of every top tier, including every Yonko and Admiral. In general, top tiers and combatants should be judged on a case-by-case basis because everyone has different abilities, different skill sets, and different weaknesses. Because would you say someone like Shanks would survive a fall from a sky island like Kaido did? Or would you say Big Mom is as fast as Shanks? No, of course not. But going back to Whitebeard and Marineford, you can make any number of conclusions on how he compared to other top tiers, but whatever that conclusion is, it's important to remember, Whitebeard's feats are not feats of the other Yonko. With Whitebeard being an outlier, top tiers as a whole should all be somewhat relative to each other. Now, of course, there should be some sort of order, and it's anyone's guess what that order is, but nobody but Oda has the answers, and we're all just here giving our best guess on who's stronger than who or what have you. Either way, the Yonko and the Admirals are all on the same exact level. There's not a tier separating the two factions. My first time binging One Piece, I had a much higher opinion of the Yonko, and of course that they were a lot more powerful than the Admirals. I even thought that a Prime Whitebeard would be able to take on two Admirals at once and win easily, as silly as it sounds. And I think a good number of people share this belief. Though, as you continue reading and revisit the material, you begin to realize that this sort of take is absolutely absurd. The topic that got me thinking about this more and more and made me understand things better was the Mihawk and Shanks debate. Most people, of course, presume Shanks to be stronger, and I always wondered why. What's the plot purpose? What's the reason Shanks has to be stronger than Mihawk, to the point that you have to sidestep Mihawk's title for whatever reason? They are not in direct opposition with each other, and it doesn't help the story one bit for Shanks to be over him. There's no plot purpose. So then I started to wonder, what's the plot purpose of the Yonko being an entire tier above the Admirals? How does that help the story? What's there to gain? Especially because in the last generation, the strongest pirates were able to match the strongest Marines. Garp and Sengoku were able to challenge Whitebeard and Roger, and on completely even terms. So then, why would Oda make this generation of Admirals that much weaker than their counterparts on the pirate side? It just doesn't make any sense, and it will perhaps hurt the story if it were actually the case. I think the simplest way to look at it is, if Shanks, a 6'6", one-armed swordsman with no devil fruit, is able to fight on even terms with the most powerful combatants in the series, why is it so hard to believe that these 10-foot admirals with some of the most destructive and versatile fruits in a story can do the same thing? From a practical standpoint, it really shouldn't be. At the end of One Piece chapter 997, we see that Kaido is able to lift the entire island of Onigashima, and a lot of people took this and started making the claim that it was official confirmation that the Yonko were over the Admirals. This is pretty disingenuous for a multitude of reasons. There's the obvious reasoning that you just can't assign Kaido's abilities to every other Yonko, as if they are carbon copies of him simply for sharing the same title. There's the fact that this sort of ability is very limited from an offensive standpoint, and most often Kaido only uses clouds to be able to fly, and from what we've seen, he doesn't go around tossing islands at people. It's still very impressive, but this sort of showing is what you should expect from a top tier. We have a naval admiral with an even more effective ability. Fujitora, who's able to control gravity, has shown us that he can lift entire land masses with as much ease. He's even able to bring down entire meteors, which is something that Kaido himself cannot do. But does he get the same credit from fans? Not even close. But it really shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't give someone an edge as a top tier just because you think that the title Yonko means more than Admiral. The feats of the Admirals are every bit as impressive. When we take a look at Akainu versus Aokiji, they did something we have yet to see from any Yonko. They fought relentlessly for 10 days straight to the point they permanently changed the climate of an island, and I think that speaks volume. I think it's also important to point out that at no point in the story has a character made the claim that the Yonko are ahead of the Admirals. We see them mentioned together as seemingly equal obstacles that Luffy must overcome to become Pirate King. Oda himself has never made this sort of statement either. He's never used the words Admiral level or Yonko level himself. So again, why should we? I wanted to say a little more on the topic, but I think I'll end the video right here. Stay tuned for my next video, The Fall of the Yonko, in which I detail how I believe the war in Wano will go down. And of course, if this is your first time watching, make sure to comment your thoughts and also like and subscribe.